Good morning and welcome to one of the trickiest topic. Yeah, actually, when we talk about hypothalamus, yes, actually it is considered as one of the trickiest topic, right? So what we'll try to do is we'll try to remember and understand that how these all hypothalamic nuclei they are arranged, right? And then what are the functions? And we'll try to learn it in a very funny way, very easy way, so that we don't have to cram as per our basic principle, right? So we don't have to cram. So let's start with hypothalamus, right? That's the topic for today. Now, see, as such, we say that the weight of the brain is 1600 grams, right? The whole brain is 1600 grams. The weight of this hypothalamus, that is mere 14 grams, right? It is just 14 grams. 14 grams, right? That is in decimals because even just the 1% of 1600 grams, right? That would also be so less, right? Just 16 grams. So this is not even 1%. It is that small, but it comprises of so many nuclei, and all these nuclei collectively they are running some very major functions, right? Very interesting and very powerful functions. So now what we'll do is say this is the head, right? So eyes, that's a nose. So our first, we'll be learning it in two ways. One, the section which passes like this, what is called as the sagittal section, right? And in sagittal section, we'll watch it like this, right? So this is our sag section, right? That's our sagittal section. The another section which we'll be watching, that would be the coronal section, right? So in coronal section, as if it is from superior, right, as it goes from top to bottom, right, top to bottom. So let's take it like this. Say if this is the nose, right, so that's the side view. This section would be passing like this, right? This is how it will go. So this one would be the coronal section. Both these sections they are needed for the 3D visualization of how these nuclei they are arranged, right? So when we'll take the coronal section, it would be like this, right? So this would be our coronal section. But the entire topic that would be revolving around these two figures only, right? So but our purpose would be to regenerate, to recreate the the complete location and how these nuclei they are arranged, the visualization. That would be very important and very vital. So here it is. Let's remove this, right? And first, at a very high speed, we just see that what are the structures. Though we have discussed it, but still it is in the benefit of everyone, right? So very high speed, this would be the anterior and this one would be the posterior end, right? This one would be the superior and below would be the inferior. This superior will also be called as the dorsal, right? In brain, it is, this is important, it is dorsal. So that this inferior, that would be called as the ventral. When we'll be talking about the nuclei, this concept of dorsal and ventral, that will be coming into picture. Obviously, the anterior part, it is also called as the rostral part, and this one is the caudal, right? Caudal part. Okay, here it is. The cingulate gyrus, correct? Cingulate gyrus. Then this one was what? That was the complete marginal sulcus, right? Marginal sulcus. Our area of interest is the diencephalon, right? It is the diencephalon. It is this area which is in which we are interested. It is this area, right? Diencephalon. We have studied the diencephalon. Diencephalon, which is comprising of thalamus, hypothalamus, right, subthalamus, and epithalamus. Correct? So that's the thalamus. So over here, this one would be thalamus, right? Then this one is interthalamic adhesions, right? Then this is choroid plexus, correct? Choroid plexus. Then this one is corpus callosum, right? Corpus callosum. Then we have over here, this one is the pineal gland, right? Then this one and this one, two bulge, that is superior colliculus, inferior colliculus. And over here, this is the area of the third ventricle. Then this is the area of fourth ventricle. And then there is cerebral aqueduct of Sylvius. Right on in front, in the back side, there is quadrageminal plate in which there are two bulges, the superior colliculus, inferior colliculus. Then over here, there would be the habenular nucleus, habenular commissure. Right, this is the midbrain. Then we have got the pons. This one is the medulla oblongata. This is pituitary. Correct, pituitary. And that's, I'm writing in bold, this is optic chiasma, right? Because there'll be nuclei which will be associated with it. Then there is this commissure, this one which is going all the way from front to back, and underneath there is choroid plexus, and that is the fornix, right? Fornix. And here is our today's guest, and that is thalamus. This is the location of thalamus. So that's it. That's it. This is what we are going to study for today, right? That's the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. So this was just for our orientation, right? Sort of orientation. Okay. So now when we say that we'll be discussing the hypothalamus, right, we'll be learning it in two ways. One, this is our sag section, right, or the sagittal section. Sagittal section. So here, the area of interest is now our focus would be only in this much area. Only in this much area. Bus. So we'll be dividing this area into 4 parts, right? Think it like that we'll be dividing this area into 4 parts. So one part, this is what that is our optic chiasma. So then there would be one area, which will be over there above it, right? So let's divide it into 4 parts like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? This is a very crudely we have divided, but actually it would be like that as we'll zoom it. So just remember, this is our optic chiasma. So that is where the entire optical equipments will be there. This first portion, it is in front. So we'll call this thing as pre-optic, right? These are the zones, pre-optic, right? Then rest are all easy. Why easy? Because this is called as the anterior hypothalamus. This one is called as the intermediate hypothalamus, and this one is called as the posterior hypothalamus, right? Posterior hypothalamus. So that's easy, right? No doubt there are other names also, and they will be subdivided. But don't worry, these are the 4 major zones, right? These are the 4 major zones. So this is zone 1, then zone 2. This is the third one, that is intermediate, and the 4th one, that is the posterior hypothalamus. Now, this is when we take a slice like this. But when we are looking from another axis, right? Now remember, this is like a coronal section. This is like this, coronal section. So as we cut, right? This is the center. This one is the center, right? And things are going like this on both the sides. So here there would be the structure which will be over here. This would be like medial, then this one would be lateral, correct? because that's how they are arranged, medial and lateral. This is a coronal section, right? We have already written coronal section. The names are: one, peri means surrounding. So in between there would be the ventricle, right? The third ventricle. So that's it. So this one, this is called as the periventricular, periventricular zone. It is very much necessary that both of us, means you and me, right, should be on the same page when we talk about that, whether we are talking about periventricular nucleus, or we are talking about arcuate nucleus, or we are talking about suprachiasmatic nucleus, any of the nucleus, but it should be crystal clear that what exactly are we talking about, where exactly are we. You should not be deviating from the zones, but that's the purpose. Otherwise rest is all very easy, right? In fact, you'll be able to draw, right? I'll draw one figure and you'll be able to draw all the nuclei just after 15 minutes, right? But just understand this. In case of any doubt, let me know. Then, so this is divided like this. So this is one phase, that is one which is central. Then there is another one, right? Then there is another one, and then there is a third one. So very simple. This one will be called as the medial zone, and very rightly this one would be called as the lateral zone. So when we are watching from the perspective of coronal section, right, it is periventricular, medial, lateral. But the moment we are looking from the sagittal section, right, it would be like 4 zones. So now can you imagine that in real brain how the things would be, right? When the full brain is there, in between periventricular zone, then as you go outside, right, as you go outside, that is on one side, right, all these areas, right, so you'll be having preoptic, right, which will be in front, then anterior, then intermediate, then posterior, right. So all these areas what you're watching, they will be part of the medial zone. Getting it? So it means if I scrape it off, I go inside, so I'll be coming across periventricular, and then there'll be the ventricle. Correct? Got it? Right? From center, this explanation is vital, right? So if I straight away go inside this figure, and all these 4 areas are there, right? All these 4 areas, we remove these areas. So what will come across? Will come across periventricular nucleus. We remove that nucleus and will be coming across the third ventricle. So over there, that's the third ventricle. On top of it, we now put periventricular nucleus. On top of it, we are putting all these 4 areas, right? So that's how they are arranged. What about the lateral one? Lateral one will be having the tracks. So right, let it come and we'll discuss it at that point. So here, this is our entire game plan, right? So let's start now picking up one after the another. We start with this periventricular zone, right? So it means we are doing what? We are first picking up the coronal section. Correct. We are picking up the coronal section. And in coronal section, centrally, it is periventricular, right? Periventricular nucleus. So in periventricular zone, right? And in this periventricular zone, there would be periventricular nucleus, right? So this is the periventricular nucleus 1. There would be 2, 3, 2 more nucleus, possibly. One, what is called as the suprachiasmaticus, suprachiasmatic. And second one is the arcuate. Deliberately, we'll be picking up both of these nuclei into the next section, right? When we'll be discussing the sagittal section, right? Because it has got the meaning, you'll automatically understand. So right now, our focus is now periventricular nucleus, right? Peri means surrounding, right? So peri means surrounding. When it is para, that means it is near. This is surrounding. It is surrounding the ventricle, surrounding third ventricle, correct? So it is surrounding third ventricle, so that's why it is periventricular zone, and the nuclei which is over there, that is periventricular nucleus. Now this periventricular nucleus, over here everything would be like circuits. So this periventricular nucleus, there would be afferent, there would be efferent. Afferent means the fibers, they are feeding him the information, and that thing will come from arcuate. Arcuate nucleus. Now arcuate nucleus, what it is doing, we have not yet discussed, right? So we just hang on. But it feeds what? It feeds anterior pituitary, right? It feeds anterior pituitary. So this means this is like a connection, right? This is like a connection. The nucleus which is picking up the things from arcuate to anterior, right? What will it be doing? Very interesting functions. By the way, I think you must remember, today I'll be giving you lots and lots of situations, so that it would be much easier to remember. One thing you should remember: hatch, right? Hatching is what? That when that egg breaks, right, and that bacha comes out, right? That sparrow or whatever hen. So that hatching, the birth of that bird, right? So that is very emotional thing, right? So emotions, they are connected with limbic system. Which are the parts of the brain which are associated with limbic system? Remember hatch, right? Remember hatch. One, it is hippocampus, right? Hippocampus. This thing will make your life easier, as we'll be discussing so many parts of the hypothalamus which are associated with emotions. A, definitely you will be knowing it, amygdaloid body, correct? Amygdaloid body, that is which is at the end of that caudate nucleus, right? We discussed it in basal ganglia. Then this T, thalamus, right? No one can take his place, thalamus. C, cerebellum, right? It is cerebellum. And this last H, that is our today's topic, and that is hypothalamus, right? So it is the joint operation of all these parts when the emotions are generated. Now it is like some emotions, they are related to learning process, some emotions, they are related to motor response, right? All those loops which we learned during our journey of say basal ganglia and the thalamus. And hypothalamus is taking things to next level, right? So over here, when we talk about periventricular nucleus, its main function first, that is the mood regulation, right? It regulates the mood regulation. So it's not so that every 1 minute either we are happy or we are sad and things go like that. No. Second, what it does is it releases somatostatin, right? It releases somatostatin. Now what it will be doing? It inhibits, right? It inhibits thyrotropic releasing hormone, right? It inhibits TRH, right? It secretes growth hormone releasing hormone, right? Growth hormone releasing hormone. So now it makes sense, because when it releases this GHRH, so anterior pituitary will take care of rest of the functions, right? So this is about the periventricular nucleus. Remember periventricular nucleus, right? It is when we are taking a section and just near surrounding the third ventricle, right? Now we'll be drawing one figure. Let's draw it on a new page, right? A big one. This figure, right, just should be scientifically correct. So you also draw along with me. So first, as we draw, and that's the optic chiasma, correct? Then this optic chiasma will go up, and then there will be stalk, and this is nothing but the pituitary, and that's it, right? So this is the area. This is the area, that is the area of hypothalamus. So now we draw all the nuclei so that you have got the crystal clear idea that where will they be, right? Because see, they'll be divided into 4 zones, right? So one would be the preoptic, then anterior hypothalamus, then intermediate hypothalamus, and the posterior hypothalamus, right? But for the clarity, let's start with the first one. First one will be preoptic. This is optic chiasma, right? This is optic chiasma. Now you know that this one is optic chiasma. Even before that, so it has to be very anterior, right? So here it is. This one is the preoptic, right? This one is the preoptic. So preoptic nucleus. It is divided into 2 parts. We'll come to that, right? First, we are drawing everything, and with every layer, we are changing the color. This is suprachiasmatic, right? This is, so then this chiasma, optic chiasma, above the optic chiasma, this one will be called as the suprachiasmatic. Suprachiasmatic. Right? Which is just above. Then over here, this one, that's called as the supraoptic, because all our optical devices, they are over there, right? The supraoptic. Then this is a part of anterior one. So over here, there'll be one nuclei, very rightly, very aptly it is said that's an anterior hypothalamic nuclei. So we'll just write, because all of them, they are nuclei, we are just writing anterior, right? On anterior, on the top, there is one over here like a cap. This is PVN. Now what this PVN is? PVN is paraventricular nuclei. Don't confuse it with periventricular nuclei. Periventricular nuclei is still inside, right? Still inside, just near the third ventricle, surrounding the third ventricle. Para means near, they are near, right? But they are not surrounding, they are near, right? This is our second layer, right? Moving on to the third layer, right? So this preoptic nucleus, that is part of preoptic zone. Then all these suprachiasmatic, supraoptic, anterior hypothalamic, and the paraventricular nuclei, they are part of the anterior hypothalamus, right? Now the next is the intermediate thalamus, right? Intermediate hypothalamus. In intermediate hypothalamus, we have one nuclei over here, right? One over here and one over here. So this one is called as the arcuate, right? Arcuate nucleus. Now, you remember I told you one is dorsal, one is medial. This above, it is called as the dorsal, and this is called as the ventral. Now it helps. This particular is ventromedial, and this one is dorsomedial. How easy, right? Because they are medially situated, right? Because there'll be one more layer which would be outside, so that would be the lateral zone. Basically, all of them, they are part of the medial zone, correct? Right? So this is red is what? Intermediate. And finally, the fourth one, that would be the posterior hypothalamus, right? And in that, we have got once again 3 nuclei. One, right? Then This is second. And third would be over here. Who are they? This is easy. Mammillary body. Mammillary body, right? And two above. One is posterior, one is lateral. This one posterior and one is lateral, right? So these are the, or these all are our nuclei. So this one is like zone 1, right? Then all these whites, right? All these whites collectively, they are in the same layer. So they are like number 2, right? Group number 2. Third one, which is over here, that is dorsomedial, ventromedial, and arcuate. So that is the intermediate hypothalamus, and this posterior lateral hypothalamus, and the mammillary body collectively, it is the posterior hypothalamus, right? So that's how all of them, they are connected. So this is like 1. So that's like 1, 1. Then we have got this interior. Then comes this posterior, the intermediate and posterior, they are separated. And this is how it gets complete. Right? So these are the 4 zones. Now we'll be diving deep in all the zones individually, because every zone, now we have got the nuclei also in front of us. Right? So let's go back to the point where we left. So we were talking about, right, coronal one, right, coronal. And in that we talked about periventricular zone. In periventricular zone, we said that there is periventricular nucleus, right? This is the only nucleus which we'll be talking about. Now this periventricular nucleus, what it does, right? Super interesting things. The name itself is, it is called as the kisspaptine, right? It is the kisspaptine neurons, these are kisspaptine neurons. And what exactly they do exactly what is written, right? All those romantic feelings, right? Romantic feelings, right? All they are thanks to this periventricular nucleus, right? So you can definitely make a gift card, right? That my periventricular nucleus is remembering you. So that's the difference between anyone else and when the medico sends. But take care that she knows. So this is like romantic feelings plus also the sexual arousal, right? These are for this periventricular zone, apart from all those emotions. That's the reason, say, when we said that, see how richly they are connected to the mood regulation. Basically it is for that kisspaptine, somatostatin, and it secretes even the growth hormone. So arcuate nucleus connected to periventricular, and then it is to anterior pituitary. So everything is like connected, right? On to the next one, right? So now in the coronary section, this one was our right, periventricular. Now comes the medial, the most complex of all, this medial zone, right? And it is this medial zone is what we have to understand very properly, right? So this medial zone, think it like that it is a layer, and then say this is a coronal section, right? This one is periventricular, this one is medial zone. But when we rotate it, so all my 4 fingers, they are like 4 zones. Getting the idea? See, this is periventricular zone. You are watching it in sagittal section. These 4 fingers, they are 4 zones: preoptic, anterior hypothalamus, intermediate hypothalamus, and the posterior hypothalamus. But when you take it in, watch it in coronal part, coronal section, right? So this is periventricular, and this entire part is the medial zone. But then that medial zone, when we rotate, so we find that yes, it can be divided into four parts, right? So this medial zone is divided into four parts. But if you have understood this, rest is all really very easy. This is like preoptic, this is anterior, this is intermediate, and this one is the posterior hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, right? So we start with now preoptic. Now, seriously speaking, at times I wish that if not much, so just this particular lecture, right, this particular session should have been taken offline, because on YouTube, like, we have to control so much, because see, some of the nuclei you cannot remember them with sharafat, but the moment you speak something which cannot be spoken on YouTube or in public, right, you never forget. So what I'll do is I'll send you a mail, right? In that I'll write down, because you will never forget in your life. Okay. So starting with preoptic, and this preoptic is what? It is anterior to optic chiasma, right? So that was when we drew it like this, right? This is optic chiasma, and then this one was the pituitary stalk, right? This, it is over here, optic, preoptic. So it is anterior to optic chiasma, right? Anterior to optic chiasma. Now it is anterior, okay, right? And it can be divided into medial and lateral part. So let's start with medial part, right? So basically its name is medial preoptic nucleus. Because see, in hypothalamus you have to just remember that that nucleus, where exactly, yeah, can be, but again, when I will see, we'll see. You are smart enough and you will understand it. So this is medial preoptic nucleus, right? At least this thing can be written. When people say, right, when people say that it is like love at first sight, no, we remember for this particular nucleus, we remember it like lust at first sight, right? Why? Because that's the function of this nuclei. This is sexually dimorphic, right? This nuclei is sexually dimorphic. Sexually dimorphic means in case of male and in case of female, the size of this nuclei, it's different. Size is different, right? Size is different. What it really does? Well, this particular nuclei, it will release one of the most important, it is gonadotrophic hormone, gonadotrophic releasing hormone, right? Or the gonadotrophic hormone. This gonadotrophic hormone, that leads to development of gonads, male and female, right? Depending upon. So that is like development of gonads. This is one. This is one. And second part, the sexual behavior, right? So that is also handled by this medial preoptic nucleus. What about the lateral one? Well, lateral one is very typical. This is L for lazy, right? When person is not working, when person is asleep, it is in deep sleep. So this is the nuclei which will come into picture when person is asleep, especially NREM phase, right? You know that in sleep there is rapid eye movement and non-rapid eye movement phase. So during NREM phase, non-rapid eye movement phase of the sleep, lateral preoptic nuclei comes into picture, right? What it really does, it releases sleep related neurotransmitters, right? So that is what it releases. So it releases sleep related neurotransmitters. And all these are like serotonin, then prostaglandin D2, right? Serotonin, then prostaglandins D2, all these are released. Plus, in our brain, there is reticular activating system, RAS, right? We have got RAS, but this RAS is a super alert, right? It inhibits RAS, right? To inhibit RAS, it would require two things. One, it will require a inhibiting neurotransmitter, right? So best is what? GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. So that is what is used. But then there is another one which is special for him, and that is what is called as the galanin, right? So galanin, this galanin is special. So the whole idea is that this medial preoptic nucleus, that is for say wake cycle, right? Over here also it is for wake cycle, that is when person wakes up, wake cycle, sleep wake cycle. While this is very clearly L is lateral is lazy, so it is only during NREM phase, and it inhibits even RAS. That's one of the reason that it has got the clinical implementation. What it is, that see, you must have seen that some people, right? Some people, they sleep so peacefully, right? They go into deep sleep very fast. For some people, for no reason, right? Their sleep is fragmented, right? Slight voice, slight noise, right? And immediately they'll wake up. Arey kya hua? Right? That sort of thing. This is because of that galanin. So when the galanin is more, right? When the galanin is more, so person goes into deep sleep. When galanin is relatively less, so that leads to fragmented sleep. So that's the reason that people have got so much of variation. So this is lateral, yeah, light sleep. So lateral preoptic. So lateral preoptic nucleus, lateral preoptic nucleus is classically associated with narcolepsy. Now, narcolepsy is what? Narcolepsy is that even during the day, people feel sleepy, right? It is like they are sleepy even during day. So, like if you have studied for whole night and then you are feeling sleepy in the day part, that is okay. They feel sleepy even during day all the times, right? All the times. Or insomnia, when they are unable to sleep at night. So that is insomnia. These are the two things. Now, as we are talking about this, I think we should add one very interesting word, and it is called as the cataplexy, right? What cataplexy is, say when we go to sleep, the muscles, they relax, right? Muscles relax. In cataplexy, even though the person is awake, his muscle tone is gone. So this is the pathological condition. So there is sudden loss of muscle tone, in awake state, in wake up state, That's why this is pathology, right? And this thing would be very, very, say, prominent after any emotional surge. In case if there is any emotional surge, so immediately it will come up. Right? No doubt in this say in narcolepsy, so then there are even other things like hallucinations, right? Then there is sleep paralysis, or all sorts of things. But this much is sufficient for what we are talking about, right? Okay, so just a quick figure once again. That is, let's say, right? This will be deviating totally. What you are asking is for the say fly, TSE, right? So just the name is sleeping sickness. Otherwise, so then pathology and everything is totally different. It is because of the bite of that fly, say fly. Okay, so let's draw, right? Let's draw once again, right? So that we know that where exactly are we, right? So here it is. This is our preoptic, right? So preoptic is done. Our next target is the anterior hypothalamus. So here will be suprachiasmatic. Now every time we won't write, but we'll just draw so that it goes into our brain. So suprachiasmatic, this is supraoptic. There would be anterior hypothalamic nuclei, and this would be paraventricular nucleus, right? So this yellow part is our next topic, right? And that is anterior hypothalamus. So anterior hypothalamus. In this anterior hypothalamus zone, we have four nuclei, right? So we said that this is supraoptic, suprachiasmatic, third anterior hypothalamic nucleus, and the fourth one, that one is this time it is paraventricular nuclei. Okay. Think it of that we are taking the anterior nuclei first. So anterior hypothalamic nucleus first. That's the car. This is anterior. Temperature of the car is high because over here the engine is there. In order to cool this car, there is something what is called as the radiator. What's the function of radiator? Radiator cools it, right? Function of radiator is cools it. So radiator is in front. Anterior hypothalamic nucleus. This is anteriorly situated, and its function is thermal regulation. Thermal regulation. That means when the temperature of the body starts rising, like this car engine, right? Like this car engine, when it starts rising, radiator runs that coolant and it cools it down. Same thing, anterior hypothalamic nucleus, remember the radiator, it is for thermal regulation. This thermal regulation is, how is it done? Well, it is done, which system will do, sympathetic or parasympathetic? Immediately you will say parasympathetic, because sympathetic to will say kya ja maar kya, right? Fight. This will say no boss, rest, right? So we want that rest and digest. And so for rest and digest, now we remember, we say it stimulates, very confidently we say parasympathetic system. Cool, right? So that's the thing for anterior hypothalamic nucleus. Remember, anterior, right? The next one. So this is one down, right? This done. Next one, this is suprachiasmatic. We are taking suprachiasmatic first. Why? Because this one is the suprachiasmatic. You know, this one. Just above optic chiasma. Now this suprachiasmatic, right? It is like charisma. What it does is, it gets the afferent fibers from retina, right? So here is the retina. It gets the information from retina. By which path? Well, the path between retina and hypothalamus. So easy to name. Retino, retino, hypothalamic tract, right? What's the big deal in that, right? Simple as that. Retino, hypothalamic tract. So it feeds the suprachiasmatic. What it will do? Well, retina will always pick up the light, right? So it will say कि अच्छा चलो सुबह हो गई, right? तो चलो wake up. So this is where it picks environmental light, right? Environmental light. And what should it do in this case? Well, only one thing, and that is it sets the circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm. Why this circadian rhythm is badly disturbed when at night we keep on watching the cell phone? The reason is the cell phone, the light of the cell phone, all those screens, they are so bright, they are equivalent to sunlight relatively, right? Relatively. So when you are watching that bright screen from such a short distance, retina will send a message via retina or hypothalamic tract to suprachiasmatic nucleus. Carry, don't sleep. Don't tell anyone to go to sleep, right? This is full night, full bright sunlight, right? And that's the reason you'll find that people even at 2 o'clock also they don't get good sleep. Now the secret is this, right? And then this is the aha factor. That retina will feed that information to suprachiasmatic nucleus. Suprachiasmatic nucleus will analyze it and will say, I need to tell someone who is so important, and that important one is pineal gland. And pineal gland we have already talked about. Pineal gland is that gland which releases melatonin, right? Melatonin, which allows the person to sleep comfortably and peacefully. But we are destroying this circuit by looking at that cell phone and just eat it, and we feel that someone from some other country, right? Some prime minister or president is interested in talking to us, right? We jump onto that, we open that light. As soon as it opens up, right, it starts affecting this circuit, and that's where your complete circadian rhythm is disturbed. This is the reason, right? That's why if your sleeping time is 10:30, right, say goodbye to your cell phone by 9:30, right? Say goodbye. For this 45 minutes to 1 hour, right, you can read a book, you can listen to some music, right? And you do anything else but to go for that cell phone, right? Those near cell phone, iPads, iPhones, all those super bright, right? Avoid it. You do it for just 3 days and then see how nice how comfortably you sleep, and the morning would be so good. Your energy level itself will change. Okay. Okay. So suprachiasmatic, that is suprachiasmatic. Okay, 2 down, 2 to go. Moving on to the supra-optic. Right? Now see, as we are telling, right, it is quite easy. Anterior hypothalamic, anterior. Anterior means it is radiator. Radiator is for cooling, so thermal regulation. So in case if there is any tumor which is knocking down the function of anterior hypothalamic nucleus, what would happen? This person will be developing what? He'll be developing hyperthermia, very high grade fever, right? Because thermal regulation system is gone. Remember your car, right? In case if this radiator goes away, that engine keeps on getting heated, right? Till that smoke starts coming out. Same thing over here. Okay. On to the next one. Now, this is my favorite. This is supra optic, right? Supra optic. In supra optic, for a minute, right? Just close your eyes and think like, imagine a situation you are going out of the door and ऊपर से किसी ने पानी डाला, right? What will you do? ये कौन है, right? Immediately you will watch up. So that is like if someone is putting the water on you. So this is you watch up. That is supra optic. Optic eyes, supra up, you watch up. Why? This is for water balance, right? So that's why I said you close your eyes and visualize, right? If someone is playing, is putting water on you, right? Throwing water from top on you. Bus. If you visualize it, you will always remember, because bus from this point onwards, so things are very easy. Water balance. How the water is balanced? Water is balanced by antidiuretic hormone. ठीक? Antidiuretic hormone, right? This is also called as the vasopressin. Vasopressin. So what vasopressin will do? Vasopressin will say that, see, if there is more serum sodium, not potassium, serum sodium is very much, throw it out, right? So it will tell, throw it out. If the blood volume is decreased, right, blood volume, so it would say that, chalo, preserve the volume, right? Antidiuresis, right? Antidiuresis. So antidiuretic hormone, right? Diuresis means passage of fluid, right? Urine. Then when the blood pressure is less, if the blood pressure decreases, so then this comes into picture. When there is pathology, that pathology will lead to what's called as the diabetes insipidus, correct? It is called as diabetes insipidus. So that's what it really does, right? So this is the function of this supraoptic, which is taking care of the water. So this one is down, 3 down. The last one is paraventricular nucleus, right? The 4th one. Now this is paraventricular. The 4th one, right? This is paraventricular nucleus. Don't confuse it with periventricular. Periventricular, which was inside, right? Which was inside. This is paraventricular, near. That was surrounding. This paraventricular nucleus, its function is synthesis. It synthesizes oxytocin. And this oxytocin is one of the important substance for uterine contraction. It is for uterine contraction. So now you know that they are literally taking over at such a wide level, right? So many functions. Apart from that, this is also one of the center which is taking care of hunger, feeding, control, right? Hunger and feeding control. And from thought's perspective, it also goes for defensive mechanism or the defensive behavior. Defensive behavior. When you know that it is a matter of survival, this is the nucleus which comes into picture, right? So 2 down, preoptic, right? Preoptic and the anterior hypothalamus portion. So this is done, this is done. Our next target is the intermediate hypothalamus. Intermediate hypothalamus. So as always, once again, we'll draw that simple figure, right? So this one would be optic chiasma, that one is the pituitary gland stalk. This one was preoptic, right? Then superior chiasmatic, superior suprachiasmatic, supraoptic, anterior, and PVN, paraventricular nucleus. Change color. Now we have got three. One, this one would be called as the arcuate, right? And then two big ones over here. So this is dorsomedial. This another one, that one would be ventromedial, and this one is arcuate. Easy, right? Ventromedial, dorsomedial, and the arcuate. So let's start with the arcuate first, because DM and VM, they are like party. So arcuate. A for A. A for A. This is what it is. Who will be feeding to it? Amygdaloid. Amygdaloid, right? That would be feeding. So if it is feeding to arcuate, so then are we thinking about some behavior? Yes, we are talking about behavior because it would be associated with emotions. So bindas, you can write it would be associated with emotions, right? So if it is amygdaloid, which was another important center, hippocampus, right? Hippocampus. So hippocampus, that is associated. It will also be feeding to arcuate, right? So this would be associated with emotions. Now you must have heard about emotional eating, right? People go for emotional eating. It is this arcuate nucleus which is handling your appetite. Your appetite. Right? This would be something which would be related to your adipose tissue. This is over here, especially the sexual behavior, that would be handled by this arcuate, right? So all these things, they are so closely related. Right? So arcuate, amygdaloid, appetite, adipose tissue, right? And all animated emotions, right? They all are like associated with arcuate. So done. Next is VM, right? Ventromedial nucleus. For ventromedial, you listen to those songs, right? You listen to those songs, but sometimes when we just listen to the music, right, we don't get that much of satisfaction unless it is video music, right? So this video music, it gives much more satisfaction. That's it. So this is a center of satiety. Satiety. That is the satisfaction. कि हाँ पेट भर के खाया, right? मजा, right? So this is the center for satiety, satisfaction. In weight loss, they say that if you want to lose weight, why they say you eat slowly? You eat slowly because this center takes about 20 minutes to get activated, right? It is a slow process. It takes about 20 minutes. By the time when the signals from the stomach comes that I am full, but still it will take about 20 minutes before it will say okay, stop eating. Right? But if you are sitting in front of TV and eating, right, so you are not knowing what exactly are you eating and you keep on eating, this 20 minutes, if someone eats fast, that's a reason of, say, obesity, right? Second, this is also the nuclei for stress response. Stress response. This is one of the center. It's a supporting center for, say, sexual activity, right? Not the thought, but the activity, right? So that is the ventromedial music, all related to video music. So it will take care of this, right? Satiety, stress response, sexual activity, ventromedial nucleus. So two down, one to go. This is the dorsomedial. This is so easy, right? Dorsomedial nucleus, right? Remember dorsomedial nucleus, this is part of that intermediate hypothalamus, right? This is part of that intermediate hypothalamus. So be very much oriented. Make it a short form. Dorsomedial is DM, right? And if I say DM, name any disease. Name any disease whose abbreviation is DM. Instantly you will say diabetes mellitus. है ना? Let's write it with red color. Our all. So this is diabetes mellitus. Okay. It has got nothing to do with dorsomedial nucleus, right? So don't worry. But this is like, if it is say DM, yes, we remember that it is diabetes mellitus. Now, diabetes mellitus is associated with GIT, right? GIT. This is the function of dorsomedial nucleus. The moment we see this, it immediately say, it is associated with eating, right? So that is what is called as the daytime feeding. That eating pattern, that is handled by dorsomedial nucleus, right? So this dorsomedial nucleus is, this is how we remember it. Okay. So we talked about preoptic, we talked about the anterior hypothalamic, we talked about intermediate hypothalamic. Last one which is left out is the posterior one, right? This is the posterior hypothalamic nucleus, right? This is the posterior hypothalamic zone, right? That entire thing is zone, and in that zone we have got several nuclei. Achha. So when we really draw it, right? When we really draw it, this is such a nuclei, and this is mammillary body, right? You remember mammillary body? I think you will know. Here it is. This one is mammillary body, right? Right, that is mammillary body. This mammillary body is carrying a superb function, and this function is episodic memory. Episodic memory. So imagine how awesome, in its most awesome way, this is remembering the things, right? So what it really does is episodic memory. It encodes and organizes. So this is the encoding of those memories. Now what are they? If I tell you that, say, do you remember what was into your breakfast? No, not photographic memory. No, this is not photographic memory. photographic memory is totally different. This is episodic memory. Episodic memory means that if we say that, chalo, why to be Sharif? Do you remember your first crush, right? All everyone remembers, right? कि हाँ हाँ अरे यार ये थी वो means can't speak more, but we remember that, right? So I'll just write first, right? First, or you remember accident, your right? Everyone comes across that typical cycle accident. अरे यार गिरे then पाँव में लगा और ये लगा वो लगा, that cycle accident, or some events in school, right? Some events in school कि हाँ class में bump फोड़ा था. So then what happened? And you remember all those things. These are episodic memory. So in case if anything happens, they start forgetting. And this is like, say, those who are chronic alcoholics, right? Alcohol, right? See, alcohol is so dangerous because this alcohol, right? It will lead to B1, that is thiamine deficiency, right? Thiamine deficiency. And that's where the memory is affected, right? Memory is affected. So when we read anything, when we study, if we typically keep on going line by line, word by word, right, it becomes difficult. But the moment we know that yes, this is associated with something so good, right, so then we remember it in a very crisp way. So this is the mammillary body is for very must memories, right? Couldn't find another word, right? So that memory. Okay. On to, so we just wrote one nuclei, right? Let's write all the nuclei over here. So in the posterior hypothalamic nucleus, right, we have got one, this mammillary body, right? The another one is posterior hypothalamic nucleus. So this is posterior hypothalamic nucleus. Now this posterior hypothalamic nucleus, once again we call that our car, right? So over here was the radiator, right? Radiator. And this particular radiator, that is when engine was getting warm, so it was acting as a coolant. It was cool, right? Its function was to keep it cool. So that was anterior nucleus. Anterior. Here is the posterior nucleus. Posterior nucleus. Its function is to keep warm, right? Because this is like now that, right, that turbo, right? So when we deploy the turbo, right, flames they come out, and that's how the, at least in games, so we do this. Right? So here, this posterior nucleus, the function of posterior nucleus is keep it hot. Right? That's the function, and that one would be, right, keep it hot, right? So that is the sympathetic system. So when the body is getting cold, right, when the person is shivering, right, this comes into picture. Okay, come on, let's keep it warm, right? So this is where the sympathetic will fire, right? Aggressive behavior, that is the part of this posterior nucleus. So that is the aggressive behavior, right? So this was about posterior hypothalamic nucleus. Okay. Then there was lateral hypothalamic area, right? Lateral hypothalamic area or the zone. So in that we have lateral nucleus, lateral hypothalamic nucleus. So this lateral hypothalamic nucleus, that is for, you know, it is like when you have got a V-shaped body. So these are called as the lats or the latissimus dorsi, right? So when you are going for the latissimus dorsi, after that, what do you feel, right? You feel hungry, right? So this is for the feeding. This is for eating, right? Basically, energy balance, energy balance. But over and above, apart from that, there is something more. And that thing is that this lateral portion, it has got those white matter tracks, right? So if I say this is the lateral hypothalamus, there would be in, there would be out. That is the afferent and the efferent. So this afferent is what is coming towards this, incoming to hypothalamus. And one of the major one which you must know, that is what is called as the Papez circuit. Papez circuit. Right? Because this Papez circuit, that is of limbic system, right? Of limbic system. And when we were talking about the medial part, medial section of the brain, at that point we said that this Papez circuit, right? This Papez circuit is from mammillary body all the way to the hippocampus, right? That fornix, you remember? Say from mammillary body all the way this fornix. Fornix is basically, it is one of the commissure, right? It is, so from over here, it is the mammillary body, and that's the fornix, and over here it was landing onto that hippocampus, right? Hippocampus. So this is what is forming the Papez circuit. So basically it is what? It is the circuit for limbic system, right? Limbic system. And limbic system is comprising of that hatch, right? What we talked about, that hatch. That is hippocampus, amygdaloid body, thalamus, cerebellum, and the hypothalamus. Collectively, this entire limbic system is meant for, see, this is the most fantastic part. This is the limbic system. When we say it is meant for emotion, okay, right? We always say that it is for emotion. But see, this Papez circuit, God has prepared this entire system not only for the emotion, right? It is emotion, motivation, third, learning process, learning, and the fourth, when things are done like this, that is when you are learning with emotions, there comes the memory. Here comes the memory. This is that circuit which is taking care of all these things, right? That's the reason that love your subject. Subject would love you, right? And you will never be able to say, forget that. Okay. So that was, now what is left out is the efferent pathway, right? Efferent means what is going out from the hypothalamus. So that's our hypothalamus, right? And things which are going out. So these are the efferent. The first one is from hypothalamus, things are going straight away to the pituitary, right? That is, and pituitary is also called as hypophyseal. So here we'll say supra-optico hypophyseal tract, right? Though name is long, but it is easy because we know that supraoptic, that was one of the area. The first what we learned, hypophyseal is the pituitary, supraoptico hypophyseal tract. That's what it does, and thus it will be communicating to the pituitary, right? The next one, right? This is one. The next one, it would be the dorsal longitudinal part, right? dorsal longitudinal. So when we say dorsal, dorsal means above, right? So dorsal longitudinal, it is called as the fasciculus. Fascicle means bundle, right? In simple words, fascicle. So fasciculus, but think it like it's like bundle of fibers, a group of fibers, right? That's what they do. So from paraventricular, right? Paraventricular nucleus. Then also from supraoptic also it goes, right? All of them, the fibers, they travel. And where do they reach, right? They reach to that all the systems, that amygdaloid, that say the limbic system parts, right? The third, which is we have, which is more prominent, and we have already talked about it, that is the Papez circuit, and it is called as the, say, mammillary, and it will go to thalamus. So mammillary thalamotract. So Papez circuit. See, putting in simple words, it literally connects to all of them, right? And even from the other connections, finally it will be landing onto the limbic system, because it controls all these features. Right? So that was how we remember all the nuclei. Now, if we just quickly revise, right? But revise it in such a way that randomly you should be able to pick up, it was for what purpose, right? So here is like a fun game. I'll just write down name of the nuclei, right? Randomly, we'll pick up the randomly, and you have to. It should come in your mind, it was associated with what. Say if I say anterior nucleus, anterior hypothalamic nucleus. So then anterior was with what? With what? Radiator, right? Radiator. So its function is what? To keep cool, right? But if you just write radiator, bus now is sufficient, right? It cools. So then if it is asked which system it affects, sympathetic, parasympathetic, obviously, right? It has to be parasympathetic. Okay. So next one, let's take preoptic, right? Preoptic. Preoptic, and in that also I am interested in that medial one, right? Medial preoptic. You remember it? Medial preoptic means something which is even before the eyes, right? It was lust at first sight. So what was it doing? It was doing that gonadotropic releasing hormones, right? So that is what was happening, and which leads to development of gonads, correct? So what about if we are talking about this? So then what about this lateral preoptic? Lateral preoptic, what was it? Right? Lateral preoptic was, I think, lazy, right? Lazy. So then now we know if it is lazy, so that means we are talking about NREM sleep, right? So it means it activates only during NREM. So done. So this is during sleep, right? Something which is releasing during sleep. Okay. So yeah, this was 3 and 4, but doesn't matter. That's good. How about supraoptic? Supraoptic. You remember it? Supraoptic. That water, right? किसी ने पानी डाला, water, and you know now this is ADH. Once ADH is known, so then the rest is all easy, right? To keep the body fluid into its control. Blood pressure decreases, blood volume decreases, so then it will come into picture. Okay. Okay. How about dorsomedial nucleus? What will it do? Dorsomedial nucleus. Dorsomedial nucleus. D M D M DM, diabetes mellitus. That means this is associated with GIT. Yes, GIT. Right? Easy. So in that case, then the appetite and hunger, all those things will come up. Okay. How about if we are talking about dorsomedial, so then what about the ventromedial? Right? Ventromedial. Ventromedial, this is VM, video music, right? And it is this video music that gives so much of satisfaction. So that's the center of satiety, right? That's the center for satiety. And limbic system, we talked about, right? So this is like there are easy ways. These are some typical easy ways to remember, and that's how the hypothalamus goes, right? Okay. So we stop at this point. So thank you so much, right? Do revise it properly. Though this is a bit tricky, but when you'll be learning the pathology part or when you'll be coming to clinical part, right? So many things are associated with these nuclei, right? So these are the keywords. You remember that much and it would be very helpful to you. Thanks a lot and see you next time. And this is saved. Okay. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye. For that paraventricular, I'll write down. There is anything wrong in it, but some things when we say, right, because it is like public. Okay. So thanks a lot and bye bye.